I would just jump in and just say briefly that to a certain extent I really think we're commenting on the caricature of his comments. If you look at what he said was not that these values of small-town America and rural America and working-class white America are the product of economic hardships. He's saying that those folks in America do not believe they're going to get any economic help from Washington, and so they don't vote their economic interest when they vote. They instead vote these other things. It's actually, I mean, we're not actually taking that on as a political issue and debating whether or not that's right or wrong. We're debating the damage of the caricature of his comments. It's become this meta-narrative about how he's been described, rather than actually taking on the meat of what he argued. I think it's pretty unfair,
If you take on the meat of what he argues, it's even worse because he connects religion and guns to bigotry and anti-immigrant feelings. I don't know how much Barack Obama really wants us to parse these words right now. And if I can say one other thing really quickly, the more people know Barack Obama, the more they like him. I'm not so sure. He outspent Hillary Clinton 4-1 in Ohio and Texas and lost. He's outspinning her 4 or 5-1 in Pennsylvania. And chances are good the polls are going to break Hillary's way at the end.
He's not connecting religion and guns and bigotry. He's giving a list of things on which people vote that aren't their economic interest. And they go from things that I think he's spoken very positively of on faith, to bigotry and antipathy toward people who are different than yourself. He just gives a list of things that aren't your economic interest. The whole context of the remark is being ignored, and we're talking instead about how his political opponents are attacking him for something that they're unfairly attacking him for.
Can it also be argued, though, that maybe Senator Clinton actually, in a sort of backhanded way, actually agrees with what he said? If you go back and you look at some of the advertisements that she had when out for her campaign in Ohio, and the comments about Geraldine Ferraro, they were playing on those sentiments, kind of like, hey, you know, don't like this guy, don't vote for this quote-unquote affirmative action presidential candidate. He's the reason why you don't have jobs. You know, in a certain way, she hasn't come out and said it, but her advertisements actually were getting at the same sentiment.
Can I make another point here? Because I think this goes to something that Joe was saying earlier, Rachel, and that is, you can debate the substance of what he said, but for a politician to be authentic and to be well received by voters, you have to be reflecting sentiment in a way that people trust you and have faith in you to be able to reflect that sentiment. And isn't the problem here that he doesn't necessarily have that reservoir of trust in this particular voting group to say, I know what you're about. He hasn't walked in their footsteps. Can he really speak with such authority about what motivates them, their voting patterns or their sentiments?
So the reservoir of goodwill and the reservoir of experience here is not necessarily with the voters that he's being accused of caricaturing. The reservoir of goodwill that's relevant here is with the media. I mean, when John McCain makes a gaffe, the explanation that we hear about why it doesn't turn into a big story is because reporters understand him and they know that he didn't really mean it. Okay, well, Barack Obama doesn't apparently have that, because what's happened here is he said something that actually we're not discussing on its merits, and we're instead taking the caricature of it by his political opponents and talking about how much damage that caricature is going to do him. You couldn't be more unfair and actually.
Well, but Rachel, but you are, in fact, right now you are discussing it on its merits, which is why I'm letting you keep talking, because I think it's a fair point. Go ahead, Joe.
The fact of the matter is, though, if he had only spoken to the bitterness angle with regard to small-town Americans, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion right now. Small-town Americans are bitter. I come from a town in the Northeast, a blue-collar town that saw manufacturing jobs go away. People are bitter. People are angry about what's happening in Washington right now. It's that connection, the way the list of words went here, clinging to religion, clinging to guns, clinging to antipathy against people from other places, people who don't look like them. That's where I think the problem comes in here.
Scarborough, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Rachel continues to blame the media for this. This isn't about the media, who, by the way, I think has been over backwards and been helpful to Barack Obama more often than not. This is about words on its surface that reinforces negative stereotypes about Barack Obama and the Democratic Party as a whole. Republicans feed off of this. The second I saw these words come across my BlackBerry on Friday night, I thought, good Lord, this is going to blow up and be terrible, because it reinforces everything Republicans have been saying about left-wing elite since Adlai Stevenson ran for president in 1952.
But, Joe, do you think that voters, when they don't think they're going to get any economic help from Washington, instead vote other issues and will vote against their economic interests when they don't think politicians represent them?
No doubt about it. Democrats lose because blue-collar voters vote against their economic interests time and time again, and they lose on these very issues. But take, for instance, I mean, my gosh, you can take the last campaign with John Kerry or Al Gore, or even when we got elected in 1994, Republicans got elected to Congress again because they won something like 75% of voters who make $40,000 or less. Those people, after 2 years of Bill and Hillary Clinton and nationalized health care and tax increases and gays in the military and gun control, they didn't give a damn what our economic package was. They wanted somebody that connected with them on a gut level. Barack Obama hasn't yet figured out how to connect with people on a gut level, whether he's in a bowling alley or at his San Francisco fundraiser. That's what he's got to do.
Let me just